There's research that shows that by the third grade, you already have it cemented what you can be and what you can't be. So it really is truly important to expose students to all of these different opportunities so that when they grow up or even when they get to middle school, it's something that they feel confident doing and that they know this is something I can achieve.
What if the key to transformation lies in shifting your perspective? Hi, I'm Dr. Payal Beri. Welcome to Reframing Perspectives. Every conversation here is about one thing: how empathy changes the way we lead, connect, and create impact. Each episode, we get to explore deep, authentic conversations designed to expand your mindset. Whether you're looking to transform your leadership, deepen your relationships within your circle, your community, and friends, or gain clarity in your own personal growth, each episode will inspire you to see things differently and take action. If you're ready to challenge your thinking and embrace transformation, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. How many times as a woman, and this is for all the women listeners here, have you been told that, oh, you should consider being a teacher? Or, you know what? Why don't we look into the arts and humanities? Don't worry about math and science. That is such a common expectation, or a dismissal, I should actually say, about what it means for a woman to be in technology. Brianne, who I got to talk to today, who is a phenomenal visionary leader and founded Code Your Dreams, a global nonprofit committed to serving underserved communities by providing community-centered computer science education to students. She was really committed to helping people that otherwise wouldn't have access to careers in technology to start to get empowered and see the possibility of what they can do. And today we got to talk about some of the most phenomenal things, because not only does she dive into talking about what it means to teach a kindergartner about the power of technology and what you can do with it, but she has actually taught 80-year-olds who have done some phenomenal, innovative things because of their experience in learning and stepping into technology and feeling empowered by what they can do. And her belief is that technology education should be a human right. And she does incredible things where her purpose is to make tech accessible, inclusive, and meaningful for all. Through Code Your Dreams, she's committed to building a world where everyone can see a problem and feel equipped to solving it with technology, and not waiting for big tech or other firms to do it for them. So I can't wait for you to dive in and listen to this conversation. Hi, Bree.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well, no complaints.
Yeah, you got this. For people who are listening from an audio version, it's like all I see right now is this like beautiful blue background of the ocean in Hawaii. And it just looks so serene and so relaxing. And I feel like that's something that we as a community and world really need to just do, is like look at the ocean.
Yes, no better place to get community work done than the ocean.
Yeah. I'm so excited to talk to you today because I've known you for now almost like 5 years, which is insane. And the work that you have been doing has been so incredible in education and technology. But before we dive into the work that you're doing and the impact that you're making with students and the impact that the students are making with the communities that you're serving because of your work, I want to get into like why. Like, what got you so passionate about STEM? What got you so passionate about education in the first place?
Yeah, it's so interesting because growing up, I was always told that I'm really great at the arts and humanities and not to worry about things like STEM and science and math. So growing up, I really didn't have any sort of STEM identity myself. But when I got to college, I discovered computer science and it just became my whole world and really empowered me to be able to create these meaningful projects that could, have an impact on the other side of the world. And so when I actually got into the tech industry and saw, wow, there really aren't many people that look like myself working in technology and on technical teams, it got me to reflect back on what it was like growing up where those opportunities didn't exist. And then I saw and experienced different harms that exist when you don't have diversity within a workforce. And so it really became my mission of bringing these opportunities to every community and making sure that the access is there, but also that everyone has access to culturally affirming STEM education, not just STEM education.
So, growing up with being so good at the arts and humanities and don't worry about the sciences and all of that, do you think that that was just also just from a cultural perspective of just, being a girl and it's just like, you don't need to worry about that. Like, just, do the thing that's just going to be more creative and fun and easy? Or was it like generally it's like those are your strengths? Because I mean, also to be an entrepreneur, you do have to be creative, you do have to bring a lot of that into it.
Yeah, I probably both. I think
Yeah.
that the gender norms were really hardcore when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So, I didn't get to learn about dinosaurs or outer space because I was busy learning about other things that were more girls' topics. And so, the first computer science class that was made available at my high school was when I was in the 12th grade. And it was never even a question of should I join this class. I didn't think I could join the class because it was all boys. They were the gamers at my high school. And I thought, this is quite literally a boys' club. How could I come in not a gamer at all? I think I played maybe like Mario Party a bit too many times, and that's it.
Mario Party? I don't think I've even heard of that.
Oh, it's good. It's it's the only one that I played growing up. So, for many reasons, I did not fit into this class. And that was the first time that, computer science was made available for me. So you have people, even us were teaching starting in kindergarten. Imagine competing with someone who's been learning at that age, and then you're just coming in at the high school or college level. It's not a fair
Yeah.
starting point.
So what was that like for you to, like, go to college and you're in this class, presumably surrounded by mostly boys, guys? What was that initial journey for you in terms of even just getting acceptance there?
Well, I really did not get acceptance there. My first intro to computer science class, I was the only girl in the class, and it was very clear day one of intro to computer science that I was already behind. My professor told us open up your terminal, which is a very basic tool for computer scientists, and all I could think of were trains and airplanes. And so it was really sad and disappointing to be there day one and then have to drop the class because how can you compete in that sort of environment, especially young women? We're taught to be perfectionists. And if there is no way you can get an A in this class, why stay in it? So I ended up doing self study and doing my own personal projects. And that's how I gained the skills to break into the tech industry because it was just the safe route for me where I wasn't having to compete. I was just competing with myself and just able to be comfortable with my own learning trajectory.
Wow, so it really is almost like because there was a lack of safety
Mm.
in being a woman in even a classroom, you had to take the route of, I'm gonna go do this on my own. I'm gonna go, figure that out, which not everyone can be as self-disciplined to like learn by themselves. Like they need that structure a little bit more. Do you think it's shifted at all?
There's definitely been shifts, and there's a lot of research that's coming out of different groups around who is taking computer science at different levels, who is staying in computer science, and who is dropping out. It really looks different thinking about the US, kind of state by state, but the trends that we're seeing is that there is more parity and equity when it comes to male and female students. A little bit year to year, we are seeing those numbers improve. However, looking at it by ethnicity, the inequities there don't seem to be improving as much.
Yeah. So you teach yourself and you feel very committed to like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, learn how to build these projects out. What kept you going for it to just go from, oh, I dropped out of this class and let me teach myself to like, no, I'm now making this a mission for me. Like it became a personal mission that like, I need to learn this.
Yeah, I think it's the power that technology holds is the thing that kept me going because really I'm not a math person. I'm not so much a logic person. So learning coding is maybe more challenging for me than it might be the next person. But being able to think through a problem, come up with a solution, and actually be able to create that solution from scratch, make it actually usable for different people, that's what really excited me. And I didn't exactly grow up with technology, definitely not in the way that kids do today. But I did get the sense of like technology is power, technology is transformational, and there's so much that you can do with it, maybe versus other career paths that I was looking at. So it was exciting.
Yeah. So fast forward, you do this work, and then where did you get the idea for Code Your Dreams? When did that really birth?
Yeah. So it's something that I had been reflecting on, and it was a journey. So I started just early in my career doing a lot of mentoring, different tutoring, worked with different nonprofits in Chicago. Then I got to a place where I felt quite a bit more confident in my career and wanted to give back more in my neighborhood. So I was thinking, I could be a teacher for an after school program or even just a TA. So I called up all of the different schools, community centers, libraries in my neighborhood and asked them, can I volunteer in a classroom? And all of them told me, no, there's nothing available. Except one community center, they were really open and they said, we don't have anything, but we would love to. Would you like to create some sort of program, create your own curriculum, and then you can actually teach it here? And so that sounded like a really fun project for myself. It was both an elementary and middle school after school program on Chicago's South Side. And it was so fun. It was so successful. And then that community center told other community centers, and it just became a nonprofit from there.
Wow. So it wasn't necessarily conceptualized at first as like, I'm going to start this nonprofit. It really just started off as I want to give back to this community. I want to like figure out how I can support. And through just doing those experiences, like Code Your Dreams was born.
Right, because I never saw myself as someone who could build their own nonprofit. Because in
How
my
come?
view, these nonprofits exist and they're, these large entities and they come from, people who are famous or have large sums of money. So who am I as a person with almost no capital, social or financial capital? Who am I to create my own nonprofit? So there was
Mm.
so much learning that I had to do, so many mentors that I needed to find, but it's definitely an unexpected, but has been a really amazing journey.
So let's talk about that nonprofit journey. There's so much going on in the nonprofit world right now. And I always find it really interesting, right? There's this perception about nonprofits because it's literally in the word nonprofit that then immediately gets assumed that they don't generate money, and that there's humility with it, there's, humbleness with it. And it's this like, of course, the mission comes before the monetary piece, but it's like, I think people forget that nonprofit is just a simple business model. Like it's just a different business model, but it still functions in that same aspect. Obviously, mission though comes first. So, in your work with like
wanting to educate and mentor and help, create more equity and more inclusion in the tech space. Like, what was your way of, with your experience in building a nonprofit versus a for profit? Like, why that route?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, to your point, they're still businesses. We are just serving the public versus serving certain stakeholders. So it was just very clear to me that our mission should and would succeed best as a nonprofit because just exactly that. The people who I wanted to serve were the public. I knew that through a lot of reading and talking with people, there are ways to diversify your revenue streams as a nonprofit. You can still launch the same initiatives, launch software, launch products in the same way that a for profit does. But I really, really wanted to be intentional with the communities that we're serving, wanted to be really intentional in the ways that we work with communities together and partnering. So it really never crossed my mind to ever even consider being a for profit. Of course, until 2020, I actually did launch a for profit that was a bit short lived to fill some gaps that came out of the pandemic. But yeah, Code Your Dreams definitely to me makes most sense as a nonprofit.
Yeah, and so, like, going into, like, this past year, I know this past year's been really challenging for a lot of nonprofits, and as you're looking at the space of, like, moving forward with, like, education and your work that you're doing and the impact that you're being able to make for, the students that are in Code Your Dreams, what do you feel is going to be the most important as moving forward to sustain yourself as a nonprofit and successfully, like, be able to continue your mission?
Yeah, I would say partnerships and collaboration is definitely going to be the key. When we look at the state of nonprofits, especially tech related and equity related nonprofits, we're seeing a lot of closures, a lot of reduced staffing. And so I think the best thing that we can do together in a world where maybe there's less funding available for nonprofits like mine is for us to really look and map out, okay, who is being served, who's not being served, what are the gaps, and how do we make sure that we work together well. I will say that Chicago does a really, really awesome job at this. We have many coalitions that I'm a part of specifically for tech nonprofits to make sure that we're not duplicating any efforts and to make sure that, we're all really intentional at getting towards that shared mission that we have. So I think that's really important. And then the second thing is really recognizing that every single person out there can be a community leader, even if they're not doing so today. So, making all of those various resources available for the public, for people who may want to start but don't know how do I start, making sure there are entry points into the nonprofit sector for everyone.
Does it make you nervous though, like your own mental mindset, right? With all of these closures happening, like I can't imagine it, like there's got to be that disheartening of it, right? You're seeing places close that you were in partnership with, that you were championing, cheering on, right? And you're seeing that happen. I can imagine that for someone like you, it's like that just like fuels the fire even more of like why we need to double down on this piece. But with funding being reduced around it, and yes, there's like those coalitions that you're part of, which is fantastic, but what are some other things that someone who's, worried about my work and the way that it gets perceived, and because of that work and how it's perceived, that I'm not going to have to maneuver even more creative ways to get funding? What is that journey like for someone who's like thinking about getting started in this space but maybe taking a second thought about it?
Yeah. On a personal level, sad and disappointing and scary, and on a professional level as well, because you see these incredible initiatives that, have started 20 plus years ago, who have these really amazing teams that are making global impacts, some in over 200 countries. And then suddenly you see these amazing organizations close and you think, well, what's going to happen to us? If someone
Right.
like Girls in Tech is unable to sustain themselves and they need to close their doors, then what is it going to be for us? I go back to community because, as the executive director of a tech nonprofit, I've been able to have one on one meetings with other executive directors of nonprofits who are in this space, and some who have had to close their doors, others who may only have a short runway. And what I'll say from these conversations is that everyone is really, really supportive on a professional level, but also on a personal level as well. And just being open to, if you need anyone to cry with, or, we're all just here for each other. So I think that says a lot. And I think that the camaraderie really can get us further and can hopefully, by working together and sharing knowledge and even partnering on initiatives together, we can hopefully go farther together. But yeah, I mean, we are thinking about changing our strategy when it comes to funding. We have relied pretty heavily on corporate sponsorships and those private public collaborations. We're thinking about, those are still just as important, but what more can we do? What more value can we bring to the community? And in what ways are there people who want to spend their money and we can provide some value for them as well?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like they always say, you want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go
Mm.
far, you go with others, right? And you have to have that group. And I think for nonprofits, it's like being so mission driven and community driven. It's like if you don't have a community to be around that are continually supporting each other and finding ways to work together, then it's almost like opposite of the entire mission and definition of like what the work is.
Definitely.
So, I mean, I'm just so curious, like talking about community, it's like with Code Your Dreams, it's not just about you offering this incredible, powerful organization that helps support so many students in learning, but it's the impact work that you're doing through that. And I'd love for our listeners to like learn about that, that like the impact you've been able to make in like prisons, the impact that you've been able to make in so many different community sectors. And what does that impact that you're able to make also have on the students?
Mm.
Because students are coming into this being like, oh, I'm going to learn to code, I'm going to learn to do tech stuff and like, education. This is so great. But then your projects are having them learn about these groups in our community that don't have accessibility, that don't have those opportunities. And now it's like their work is now not just personally fulfilling for their excelling of their skills, but it's actually fulfilling for the rising of like how they're getting to support this community. So what is that like?
I really go back to that technology is power, and that with those skills and resources, you can not only transform your own life, but also the lives of others. And I think as human beings, that's really all we want to do. We want to make a life for ourselves that's good, and then we want to build a better world and leave it in a way that would be better. So it's really, I mean, just incredible seeing our students as young as kindergarten also have those feelings of, I'm going to create something that's going to help other people. We've had a first grader, Ella, who created a mindful app, and her problem statement was sometimes I get mad and my classmates get mad. So she created actually an award winning app that helps you do mindfulness exercises, and it included affirmation exercises as well.
Wait, this is blowing my mind. A first grader?
Yes, the video
Wait, okay,
is
hold
on our
on, hold on. So
YouTube.
wait, what? Hold on. How are you teaching a first grader to build an app? Like, And or like, walk me through this. I mean, this is phenomenal.
Yeah. So what she used was a tool called Scratch. And on Scratch, you're able to create games and apps and animations. And so she was a part of one of our elementary school programs. And she created this specific app and then was a part of a Chicago innovation competition and actually won third place for the app that
Oh
she
my,
created.
that's incredible. And the reason why I think that's so incredible is because she's in first grade. I'm assuming she's either like 7 or 8 years old or something. And for her to build that, right, versus us as adults that question anything that we do and we don't take that step in, I can do this, I'm going to figure it out, right? But the confidence of a 1 year old, because at that point, like they're not jaded from all the things that we go through or we're kind of put under. I find that that's so powerful because you're teaching from such a young age that this is possible for you.
Right. And I think that's why it's so important because if we can teach everyone at a young age, then everyone has the same starting point and that everyone is able to get to the same end point or outcome as anyone else that's their age. And there's research that shows that by the third grade, you already have it cemented what you can be and what you can't be. So it really is truly important to expose students to all of these different opportunities so that when they grow up or even when they get to middle school, it's something that they feel confident doing and that they know this is something I can achieve.
So by the time they get to college, they know exactly what the word terminal means.
Exactly.
That is what it all goes back to. No, that is actually a fascinating research about that. By the time you're in third grade, you already have it cemented, and so much of that, right? Like we all say, like the research has also shown that, like by that point, also is your core personality has been fully developed, and what you experience at that point, and that's why like childhood psychology is so important, and what like the environment is so important. So many factors of that go into it, but that is phenomenal. The fact that you have a first grader that built an award winning app on mindfulness, and just even being aware of those feelings and knowing that those feelings like need to be expressed, need to be like dealt with. So that's amazing. So again, going from the fact that like you did that, you this first grader built that out, and now I can only imagine that she has more momentum about what else can I do with this and how else can I grow, right? What about some of these other projects that you're involved in? For example, how many prisons now is your tablets in?
Yeah, so we have a great partnership with Adovo. So Adovo, they have and build software that goes on top of tablets that are in different correctional facilities. So we've been able to work with them to publish courses on tablets in over 750 US correctional facilities. So two kind of use cases. One are for students who do have live and in person classes with us. The reason why is, as technologists, we need to constantly be working on our craft, but people
Right.
are only in our program for maybe a few hours, 3 or 4 days a week. Yet they have so much more time that can be filled with practice and learning. And sometimes, depending on the tier that incarcerated people are in or the facility, they're actually able to take these tablets with them in their cell and sometimes even overnight. And so giving them the ability to continue working on their projects, to continue learning, it really is so impactful and thinking about the impact as well for those people who are able to get out and start a career, that additional time is so important. We also have courses available for people who aren't a part of our in person live program. So they're still able to take our courses while in our in person programs, our students do get college credit for the asynchronous classes. They're all certification based. so people are able to get certifications in intro to technology, HTML and CSS and JavaScript. We have a Python certification. And so people are actually able to post their certifications as a way to a judge to show, look at what I'm doing to really improve my skills and getting myself job ready to hopefully get out early. So it makes a
Yeah.
really important case for that as well.
Hi, so I'm pausing the episode for a quick moment and for a quick favor. If you haven't already, if you could just click subscribe, leave a review wherever you're listening to this episode, it would be really helpful. The only way we can know to make sure that we provide the right type of podcast episodes, the right type of guests, and to make sure that we're delivering the type of content that you actually want to hear, it's through your reviews and through your support. Thanks. And now back to the episode.
Have you noticed a difference in in them being able to get out then? And, have you seen any data on how much that has actually helped them in being able to prove that they're ready now to come
Mm.
back into the real world?
Oh, I wish I had that data. That would be incredible. Hopefully one day we'll be able to have that data to really prove why this is so important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that is so critical. This year I spent a lot of time talking to different individuals who have spent a significant amount of time in federal prisons. And one of the things that they all talk about is just how education played such a massive role in their ability to shift who they were, how they saw themselves, and what they're capable of. And there's one misconception that I think the community has is that, they get education through taxpayer money, but it's that's actually not the case at all. And it's that, if you're in prison, you actually have to have someone from the outside world who's going to write a check and pay for you to be able to get your courses and education. And, one course can be like $1,000 and they're not making that cash inside prison. So, if they don't have and if they don't come from a society or community, family that can pay for that, they often don't have access to this. So having programs like yours and having programs, like Andrews that we know, with the Wisconsin, it's like going in and providing bachelor degrees that are nonprofits, that are, sponsored and funded. It really does make a difference in them being able to come back out. And I think the stats is right that 52% of individuals that come out of prison and get a job never commit a crime again. And so, that relationship and correlation between education and prison is so high in them coming out and becoming reformed and successful, or, as successful adults as they can be. And so the fact that you have over 700 tablets and your education courses in that, that is 100% playing a role in this, which is incredible. And I can only imagine how that feels for the students who get to hear those kind of stories then.
Yeah. I mean, it's so logical that so many
Yeah.
people go to prison because that was the only option. There was no other option. And so when you give someone those options, it just makes the world of a difference. And as humans, education gives us purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
my grandfather, when he was in concentration camps during the Holocaust, it was education that kept him fighting every single day. And
Wow.
so, yeah, it's just, I mean, for me, I love our showcase days with the correctional facilities that we work with because they're all inspiring. And the ideas and solutions and technologies that our students are building, there is no one building these solutions. And that's why technology and technology teams need to be diverse because we need all of those diverse perspectives to build solutions that work for everyone, not just for certain groups and certain
Yeah.
perspectives. So, one of my favorite projects that was worked on, I think it was the Massachusetts Women's DOC. And we had one student who was a grandmother and she loved cooking food for her family. It was her favorite thing to do. And then she, made her way into prison, and there aren't many food options, but she had to be
Mm.
creative. So she came up with all of these creative ways to cook gourmet meals in the microwave. And she thought, you know what? There are so many people out there who can learn and benefit from cooking gourmet food in the microwave. And so she created her own website that showcased all of the things that you can do with such limited resources. And I just thought that was so brilliant. And I've never heard of that before. And just,
Yeah.
it's just the coolest thing.
That is amazing, and again, right, like you share a story of a first grader and then you share a story of a grandma and everything in between it. And just, I think it's just so important to then just show that like education really has no barriers and education has no age limit. It's something where it is that, of course, the younger that we get to students to be able to have education as a powerful tool, the better it is for them. But it doesn't mean that if you didn't start at a certain point that you can't later. And I think that's the powerful part is with what you're doing with Code Your Dreams is like you literally are giving people of all ages, of all backgrounds, an opportunity to take something that is an accessible resource, right? Education is accessible, like, especially nowadays, like, go on YouTube, like, go on wherever. There's so much free resources out there on how to teach yourself something that that one piece doesn't have to limit us. And for you to then take that and create these opportunities where now you have a grandma who's that is such a brilliant concept and idea because so many people don't eat nourishing meals or healthy meals because they don't know how to cook or that they think it's going to take too long. And it's like, yeah, if you can nuke it in the microwave, like fantastic. Like, let's do this.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's just really giving people a chance and the opportunity and to really have a mentor and a person who tells you you can do this and to help you through it because
Yeah.
I mean as people we have so many distractions, we have so many competing priorities and coding is hard, building technology is hard, and so we just need someone to tell us whether that's ourselves or someone else, you can do this and I'm going to help you through it. I just love thinking about our students.
I think no matter what happens, nonprofits are going to always continue to play a really pivotal role in our communities that don't get the type of services that are accessible to other communities. And I genuinely do believe that now is the time for nonprofits and for people working in that space to really band together and to commit that our work has become even that much more amplified to making sure that as things change in the education system and as things change with whatever happens in our world, right? That if there is something that they can trust, it's going to be the mission of these nonprofits that exist in the community because it's for the community by the community. And I think that is one of the parts why communities do trust nonprofits over for-profit companies, right? Or over, some government agencies sometimes. Like it's just that the intention behind your existence is so deeply rooted in the mission of for the people that there's no way you can't trust that, especially in a community that has a lot of risk with safety.
Right. It's hard. It's hard because there just does exist distrust with nonprofits. We have seen bad actors, and so that does just
Right.
muddy the water for our all of us. And I think that sometimes there's a higher bar for nonprofits than there are for other types of businesses. But it makes sense. We're public servants. We're here to serve the public, and it's our duty to prove that we're serving the public. And if we're not working hand in hand with the community that we're serving, then we're not serving the community. We're really just
Yeah.
serving ourselves. So I think,
Mm.
yeah, maybe there needs to be a re-education of, what of nonprofits and what we're here
Yeah.
for and how we can better. work together because I do see just so many amazing, truly extraordinary nonprofits. But then, we see some bad examples as well. So it's really hard
Yeah,
for the
well,
public.
that's gonna exist in no matter what we do, right? So, like, I think that if we can take that with a grain of salt of being like, they do exist, but that doesn't represent the majority of who we are, right? And I think that that's really hard in our culture where, as great as technology is, it can also amplify these like smaller percentages of the bad that's happening. The bad seed somehow gets more attention. And so because it gets more attention, it somehow now projects as if like literally just shadowing everything else good that, a group or community or industry is doing. So being able to reset that, and I think that just that commitment and that mission and that being hand in hand with the community in the community is like where they can be like, okay, well, Bree really wants to shift the way that we see accessibility for ourselves, the way that I see that there is another way out in my life besides the one that has been somewhat predetermined for me. And I think that's what when I think about Code Your Dreams and when I think about the work you're doing in technology and education, I think of that. Like I think purely from the place of you're opening the eyes and you're allowing people to dream who possibly were told they're not allowed to dream. And that in itself, even if they don't end up pursuing a career in technology or anything, but you've literally given them a very different narrative and in a very practical way that otherwise, just sounds like fluff.
Right. And I think too, the projects that come out of our students and our programs, I think that they showcase the impact of our program and why it's important better than I could even talk about.
Yeah.
So I feel very lucky that, our students themselves, they are the evidence, and I'm just here to advocate and empower.
Yeah. How do students enroll in your programs? Like, how do you get, for example, this grandma to enroll like alongside your first grader?
Yeah, it truly, truly depends where we are hosting the program. So we host at a diversity of venues, schools, local universities, community colleges, libraries, community centers, park districts, different correctional facilities. So it really depends. Some of our programs are open enrollment, which means that anyone in the neighborhood can apply based on the eligibility requirements. And then some are location specific. So it might be for students at a particular school or students that are at a particular community center. So it really just depends. I think something that's really exciting is that anyone can start their own Code Your Dreams program. So, back to my story of I had to call all of these community centers, libraries, write my own curriculum, figure it out myself, make a whole bunch of mistakes I wish I didn't. Now that's all packaged so that anyone who's like me, just a regular person pretty early in their career wants to make an impact and teach a program, they have all of that to get themselves started and to launch them into the impact that they want to see.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about that possibility and excited to see so many other Code Your Dreams programs pop up all over the world. But for now, it's quite location specific.
That's amazing. If there's one thing that you could help people reframe their concept of the work that you're doing with Code Your Dreams, what would that be?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that everyone has a role, and we want everyone to have a role in, the community space, the nonprofit space. It truly takes a village. And for me, I had pretty low confidence coming into this type of work, but people just welcomed me in a way that made me feel like I do provide value. So, the biggest thing I want people to know is that you have value. There's so much that exists within your mind and the ideas that you have, and even just your participation in community activities. We're seeing a lot of, people in politics too say, we need everyone can come together and take a role in community building. So community is it's been my word
Yeah.
of the year for like 8 years. So I think it will continue to be.
Yeah, I think community is core to everything. I think people are really craving it. I think people are needing more in-person community, and they're needing more of creating something and seeing something come to life and being a part of a bigger mission beyond themselves. I think it actually can help actually eradicate some of the loneliness epidemic that we have in our country and help people actually open their eyes to also like different ways of like life, different ways of like people and like how we exist and how we curate together. And like there's so much that you're teaching beyond just like coding and technology and education. Like it really is the power of just human connection.
Exactly. Yeah. Connection and voice, I think, is two of the most powerful things that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Bree, so much for being on today and just sharing everything that you're doing with Code Your Dreams. I think it's so powerful to hear about you just from the beginning, like the fact that, even though you may have like technically dropped out of a class, it doesn't mean that you dropped out of your mission. It only fueled it that much more. And because of that one moment, because you didn't know the word terminal, like it literally set you on. Because if you had done that, like I don't know if Code Your Dreams would be what it is, right? And you may have ended up like just taking a good old job at a corporate company and moving on that way. And this literally was a catalyst of you saying like, no, things are going to change and I'm going to be a part of that change. So thank you for being you. Thank you for existing. Thank you for creating Code Your Dreams. And I'm so excited to hear more stories of first graders and grandmas coming together. Like, can you please do that? Like, have like literally like first graders and grandmas and set them up and have them create something together in partnership.
Love that.
That would be so cool. Like something where, oh my God, okay, idea. I think you should have something where there are two groups that exist, right? You've got elderlies that get put into homes, they never see their families, and they're very lonely and isolated. Then you've got kids that are, in orphanages or, they're in foster care, they're very alone too. What would it be like to have these two groups come together and create something that actually like helps old grandmas be mentors and role models to kids that don't have that family and don't have that back, and you can create that project. Okay, there you go.
I love it. And there's so much that these young little students can teach.
Yes.
Incredible. And even, by the third grade, so many of these students are teaching me how to use technology.
Yeah. I mean, hey, listen, we may make fun of boomers, but at some point we're going to end up being in that position. My nieces remind me all the time about like how old I am. So it's, if you're born in the late 1900s, you're now like a geriatric human. So I think that could be such a cool project and something that would just bring so much meaning and community and just purpose to some groups that feel deeply isolated.
I love it so much. Now I have one more project to work on. So thank you for that. But thank you so much for having me on. This was so fun.
This is awesome. Thank you.
I really hope that you enjoy this episode, and I just have one favor to ask you. If you could just make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a rating and review, it's going to help us tremendously to make sure that we reach as many people as possible that you think should be listening to our episodes. I'll see you next week for another episode, and thank you so much for leaving that one review, that one subscription, and sharing this with your friends.